Climate change is a large-scale social dilemma that the United States federal government seems uninterested in tackling. We are removing carbon from prehistoric sinks and emitting it into our atmosphere at an unprecedented rate. The largest source of carbon dioxide is the burning of fossil fuels, which the entire planet depends upon for everything we do, from powering the factories that make our clothes to providing electricity to our homes. Carbon dioxide blocks heat from leaving the atmosphere, causing the planet to warm, one of many positive feedback loops. Expansive research has been done on this subject. We have very clear data from the Mauna Loa Observatory's Keeling Curve, the Trinity Report, and various projects orchestrated by organizations such as the UN and the IPCC. Not only is the atmosphere warming, oceans are absorbing unprecedented amounts of carbon, forests are being clear-cut, habitats are changing along with the temperature, sea levels are rising, and natural disasters are becoming more and more frequent. The world is in turmoil. Right now, the planet is currently warming an average of 0.2 degrees Celsius per decade, throwing the planet out of equilibrium. But even though we can see science in action, why is no one doing anything about it? Well, there are many ways to explain the relative global inaction to mitigate climate change. The source of the problem are our human behaviors and biases. One key bias that hinders the general population and global leaders alike is bounded rationality. Bounded rationality is a behavioral economics term that refutes the idea in classical economic theory that humans are self-interested agents who seek optimal, utility-maximizing outcomes. Our rationality is bounded by various factors, such as thinking capacity, information, location, and time. The idea of bounded rationality helps us understand what aspects of the climate change issue are difficult for humans to grasp, and what makes it especially difficult for politicians and decision makers. Often, the groups that need to make policies and take meaningful action, like our federal government or this Board of Regents, are in a tough position to actually do so. You have to answer to various interested parties, justify large spending to a large community of people who will all likely see increased fees being asked to understand large-scale global phenomenons. This is a key aspect of bounded rationality, that humans can only be rational within the limits of the information they have. Often, there is not enough information on how institutions should enact meaningful policies that will reduce their impact. Humans are unable to see the full picture because the picture itself is just too large, even for a global research institution such as the University of Washington. Often, attention shifts are governed by emotion, meaning that long-term infrastructural planning is difficult to conceive within the confines of day-to-day problem solving. Decisions end up being made with imperfect information and to appease the majority of interested parties. This is called satisficing, where decisions are good enough within the constraints of the problem, but do not necessarily maximize social welfare and justice. Another key component of bounded rationality is time, and within the lens of time, money. Many important decision makers are more cognizant of time and money than they are of solving the issues affecting their constituents. This is because they are driven by temporal incentives, such as election cycles. Climate change will not be solved within the bounds of an election cycle, which means that groups such as yourselves are not situated to be perfectly rational about what is at stake, since you serve 6-year terms. If enacting certain policies are likely to anger your constituents while you are in your position, you are less likely to do it, creating a university-wide multi-million-dollar plan to mitigate climate change included. Equally important in discussing how bounded rationality inhibits climate change are the limits to our thinking capacity as humans. Bounded rationality is an important determinant of individual risk perception, and we all tend to underestimate large risks, such as climate change or natural disasters. This further applies to spending money. Spending the dime of key stakeholders would be a promise without return, the effects of action now being invisible until far in the future. That is not a risk most stakeholders are willing to take. If we were perfectly rational, we would see what science says and understand why capital investment in climate change mitigation is necessary, yet we cannot mentally decode the sheer immensity of the risk we are facing. While there are many more explanations for the lack of action surrounding climate change mitigation, bounded rationality is an important concept for understanding how our own behavioral limits are stopping us from making truly rational decisions. As we come to terms with this truth, we will find more effective ways to justify global action to mitigate and eventually reverse climate change.